The cameras were flashing, the crowd buzzing, the music swelling in a dazzling crescendo. But all of that noise meant nothing to him. Dylan Wang sat stiffly in his seat, his hands clasped, his jaw tight, and yet nothing could disguise the storm in his eyes. Across the room, Shen Yue appeared radiant, smiling politely at fans and journalists alike. But that smile, it didn't reach her eyes. The moment their gazes brushed, a fleeting, almost imperceptible second, the air around them seemed to crack. It was as if time itself had paused, holding its breath for something neither of them could say. The entire world watched the summit, the awards, the red carpets. But nobody, not a single lens or photographer, captured what truly happened between them. Because sometimes, love isn't in the flash of a camera. Sometimes, love lives in the silence between two people who can no longer meet each other's eyes. Dylan had rehearsed this evening 1,000 times in his mind. He had imagined every step, every smile, every word he might say if he saw her again. But rehearsals don't prepare the heart for the truth. When Shen Yue walked past him to accept her award, his chest tightened. Every laugh she shared, every subtle nod she gave, tore at something inside him. He wanted to call her name. He wanted to reach out. He wanted to pretend the years, the misunderstandings, the distance. None of it mattered. But he couldn't. Because there are moments in life when the weight of love is heavier than pride. And sometimes letting go requires the silence you wish you could never speak. Shen Yue, on the other hand, felt the tension like a physical presence. Every step she took, every smile she forced, carried the burden of memories she wasn't ready to share. She remembered the late-night shoots, the stolen glances in empty hallways, the warmth of his hand brushing hers when no one else was around. And now, he sat there, so close yet unreachable, as if an invisible wall separated them. For the audience, they were just two stars at an award show. For Dylan and Shen Yue, it was a reunion fraught with unspoken words and unshed tears. Earlier that night, backstage, whispers had swirled. Dylan had been seen exchanging polite words with co-stars, laughing carefully, moving with grace. But those who watched closely noted the way his eyes searched the room for her. And Shen Yue, while dignified in her demeanor, had paused longer than necessary in the wings, her hand brushing her chest as if holding onto a fragile secret. No one realized it yet, but this night would not be remembered for awards or speeches. It would be remembered for the silence that spoke louder than any applause. The summit progressed, one award after another. Lights glimmering, cameras flashing, fans cheering. And all the while Dylan's gaze lingered. He wanted to speak, to bridge the gap that had grown between them. But the years of pride, the fear of being misunderstood, kept him frozen. Shen Yue's eyes met his once more briefly as she returned from the stage. She smiled softly, a smile tinged with sadness, and looked away. It was a silent confession of her own. A confession that she loved him still, but knew that sometimes love isn't enough to overcome what life has done to them. No one captured the moment when he finally rose from his seat. He moved, not with the casual grace expected of a celebrity, but with hesitation, as if each step carried the weight of years. He reached the side of the hall where she was speaking quietly with assistants and publicists. Her head lifted instinctively at the sound of his steps, and for a heartbeat, their eyes locked. And then, he stopped. Not a word was exchanged. Not a sound. Because some truths are too painful to speak aloud. Shen Yue's heart raced. She wanted to say something. Anything. To break the invisible wall that had grown between them. But the words refused to come. And in that shared suspended moment, they realized the truth of their love. Sometimes it is not the grand declarations, not the dramatic gestures, that define love. Sometimes it is simply the silence of hearts breaking in unison. Dylan looked at her, studying every expression, every subtle twitch, every micro-reaction that hinted at her inner world. He saw the same longing reflected in her eyes that he felt himself. And yet, he could not cross the room. Because love, once complicated by fame, pride, and years apart, is not easily reclaimed. Shen Yue, meanwhile, fought the urge to step closer, to reach out, to say, "I still remember everything. I still care. I still." But she didn't. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, allowing the smallest gesture, an almost imperceptible nod, to communicate all the words that would never be spoken. It was enough. And it was heartbreaking. The cameras never caught the exchange. Fans saw only fleeting glances, staged smiles, and the professional poise expected of public figures. But those who were there, those who paid attention, felt it. They felt the tension, the history, the unspoken confession between two people who had once loved with all their hearts. And later, when clips circulated online, fans debated endlessly. Did Dylan Wang ignore her? Why did Shen Yue look away? Are they together? The truth was far more painful and more beautiful than anyone could imagine. Love existed in silence, in restraint, in the ache of a heart that cannot act. As the summit ended, Dylan walked away first, disappearing into the waiting limousines. Shen Yue lingered a moment longer, her eyes lingering on the spot he had just vacated. She felt the void in the space between them, and she understood fully, perhaps for the first time, that sometimes love demands courage. And courage is not always enough. The night didn't end with words. It ended with silence. A silence that would echo in their hearts for months, perhaps years. The fans saw the glamour. The photographers captured the flash. But the real story, the one of broken hearts, restrained emotions, and love left unspoken, remained invisible. Weeks later, subtle traces of that night began to emerge. Dylan posted a cryptic quote on social media. "Some things are too heavy to carry in words." Shen Yue, in her own quiet way, shared a photo of a single rose on a windowsill, captioned, "Some love lives only in silence." Fans analyzed, dissected, theorized. And yet, only they knew the depth of the truth. The night of the summit had changed everything. Months passed. Both continued their careers, shining on screen, smiling in interviews, attending premieres. But anyone who looked closely noticed the subtle weight in their expressions. A glance toward someone across a room. A faint hesitation before speaking. The almost imperceptible softness in their smiles. Their love had not vanished. It had transformed. It lived in memories, in gestures, in the quiet space that no one else could touch. Sometimes, love doesn't end with a kiss. Sometimes it ends in a heartbeat, in a glance, in the silence that says more than any confession ever could. The 2025 Weibo Summit became a symbol of that truth. A night when two hearts, still connected, could not bridge the gap between them. Dylan Wang couldn't face her. Shen Yue couldn't reach for him. And in that impossibility, they found a heartbreaking beauty. A love that endured in silence. A love that was never spoken aloud. A love that, though hidden, would never be forgotten. Even now, when fans recall